Look, I said last night we had to be cautious about the Middle East ceasefire. These things never go completely smoothly. But didn't the anti-Trump mob in the media and in politics want it to fail? Didn't they want it to fall apart quickly? These people are so obsessive about their hatred for President Donald Trump that it seems some of them actually wanted war to break out again in the Middle East just to prove Trump wrong. Much of the media was quick to kill off the ceasefire.
Ceasefire failed. Donald Trump's promise of peace wavers as Iran strikes again.
Tehran will tremble. That's the threat from Israel, which has already ordered more strikes on the city, accusing Iran of breaching Trump's ceasefire deal just hours after it came into effect.
Tonight, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be already over.
A ceasefire between Israel and Iran that had been declared by the US President Donald Trump appears to be over after just 4 hours.
Yeah, they want Trump to fail. They always do. We kind of get that. But what transpired actually was even more impressive. It was an incredible example of leadership and peacemaking by Donald Trump. Because as we reported last night, both Israel and Iran kept up hostilities right up to the ceasefire deadline, with tragic civilian deaths in southern Israel as a consequence. But even as we went to air, there was word of Iranian missiles fired at northern Israel after the ceasefire kicked in. And we had Gerald Steinberg say live on the program that they hadn't hurt anyone, so hopefully there'd be no retaliation from Israel.
There might be a couple of people in Iran who decided on their own, members of the Republican Guard or the Iranian military who decided to launch this. Their communication system is definitely not intact. So we're going to probably wait and see what happens. I don't think those two missiles did any damage.
Yeah, that was wise counsel, but minutes later we heard the Israeli Defence Minister vow vengeance, declaring Israel would bomb Tehran in retaliation. And that's where Trump stepped in, all the way from Washington in real time to preserve the peace.
I think they both violated it. I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Yeah, the president was about to board a chopper to head to the airport to fly to Europe for the NATO summit, but he was focused on stopping bombs being dropped in the Middle East. It was then that he uttered that wonderfully frank assessment that had heads nodding all around the world.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now, that's a little unfair on Israel, which has never been the aggressor and is surrounded by enemies that want to destroy it. But everyone got the point. And incredibly, President Trump's interview, his social media posts and his phone call to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu changed everything.
Yes, a missile was launched a couple of minutes afterwards, which went nowhere, which hit nothing. And there was going to be a retaliation this morning. So you got to go back. It did. So I respect very greatly.
We've later learned that the Israeli fighter jets were in the air, in Iranian airspace, when the call came to abandon the mission. Terrific stuff. No ceasefire is smooth. No war is ended without enormous tension and trauma. But for now, the ceasefire holds. Yes, of course, there are major questions about the future. The Islamist regime in Tehran is telling Iranians it's won a great victory, which gives you a bit of an insight into their grip on reality. So what happens to the regime, its sponsorship of terrorism and its nuclear weapons ambitions is crucial. And this is where diplomacy and international pressure will need to continue. As to the current state of its nuclear weapons program, well, CNN reported that intelligence has assessed the damage done to Iranian installations at the lower end of expectations.
What we are told is that based on the assessments of the damage that these bombs implemented on these nuclear sites, that as of right now, it does not appear that they ended or obliterated Iran's nuclear program. Instead, they only set it back by months, according to people who were briefed on the assessment.
Now, that was an early assessment from just one agency with much closer examination to come, of course. But the White House was outraged.
According to White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong." She said it was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets. Total obliteration.
Yeah, and the president was having none of it.
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me.
Well, he's firing on all 8 cylinders at the moment, isn't he? Now, of course, full inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency and others are going to be required in Iran as the international community looks to bed down this precarious peace that's now been hard won. This is the historic opportunity created by Israel's determined efforts to defend itself and Trump's timely but devastating decision for military intervention from the US. And as I said earlier in the week, with Iran looking to Russia for support, we could expect Vladimir Putin to try to extract leverage for his negotiations over the Ukraine war. Well, that's exactly what he tried to do. But listen to how Trump claims to have dealt with that.
I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, "Can I help you with Iran?" I said, "No, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you." And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. More, 6,500 soldiers died last week. Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president.
Yeah, war still raging in Eastern Europe with a war-ravaged Middle East in the second day of a tense ceasefire. While Israel's war in Gaza continues, President Trump has plenty on his plate. For now, he's making useful and welcome progress. But incredibly, back here in Australia, Anthony Albanese, after failing to give either Israel or the US the slightest bit of moral or diplomatic support for months, well, today he's tried to associate himself with the president's success.
I think that he stated his views pretty abruptly, and I think they were very clear. I certainly, as I have said this week, we want to see peace in the region. We want to see a ceasefire. We want to see de-escalation, and that is consistent with the very clear comments of President Trump.
Really, mate? None of this would have happened. None of it would have happened if Trump or Netanyahu had listened to your gormless calls for de-escalation, dialogue and diplomacy. It's only military intervention that's made these gains possible and created the opportunity now for diplomacy. And yes, it was Trump, the president that Albo can't get to meet, who's created this breakthrough and is pushing for peace in the Middle East and Ukraine as well. And whether you like Trump or not, surely we all want him to succeed.